Good evening and welcome to 1010, your top 10 news in 10 minutes. I'm Andy Hong. Brian and Katie are off tonight, so it seems like it's just me, the old staff, camera, you folks out there. Well, it's always been like this before we got the new peeps, so let's get to it. We reported on the tragic crash of the Russian Metrojet flight in Egypt last week and how it was deemed most likely that the crash was due to mechanical failure, contrary to a strongly rebuffed claim that ISIS took the plane down. But now, new evidence showing compelling evidence of a possible bomb detonation as a crash cause is stirring controversy, although mechanical failure is still one of the top suspects. The French investigation team has concluded that the crash definitely involved a violent mid-air explosion, as supported by American satellite readings at the time showing a heat flash over the crash site in the Sinai Peninsula. American and British investigators are also pointing to strong evidence that could indicate a bomb attack, which President Obama agreed as a possible cause in an interview with a radio program. The Egyptians, however, are not happy and accuse countries of not sharing investigation information. The Egyptian Foreign Ministry has every right to be concerned. Numerous airlines have suspended routes over the area, and the negative image is becoming compounded as people are also revisiting the news of a stray Egyptian military rocket nearly hitting a British passenger jet carrying 189 people on board back in August. Should the ISIS claim of a bomb planted in the jet be true, we can expect President Putin to spare no expense in going after the extremists. The leaders of China and Taiwan met in person for the first time since 1949 in Singapore. For the leaders of two nations who have been at each other's throats for more than 3/4 of a century, the meeting was surprisingly civil. President Xi Jinping of China and President Ma Ying-jeou called for the reduction of hostility and an increase in cross-strait exchange. All good things, but they still had their differences. Xi continued to reinforce their one-state idea in which Taiwan is a renegade province rather than an independent nation, while Ma disagreed on the definition of a one-child policy that the Communist Party in China recently struck down. We must also consider that Taiwan has a lot of political stake in this meeting. Ma's term as president is almost up, and the candidate for his Kuomintang party is far behind in the polls. This historic move could either give candidate Eric Chu a strong boost or completely destroy his presidential bids should China be able to use these meetings as a leverage against Taiwan. East Asian politics. It's scary and so entertaining at the same time because everybody hates each other. History is also being made in Myanmar, where they are holding the first openly contested general election in 25 years. The ruling military-backed Union Solidarity Development Party is challenged by activist and Nobel Peace Prize laureate Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy, along with dozens of others, to make up a total of 90 parties with 6,000 candidates running for the 664-seat parliament, a quarter of which are reserved for military representatives who technically make up an extension of the USDP. In a country racked by civil unrest and a precedent of the military snubbing election results, we can only hope that the election yields positive results for the former military dictatorship. Back in the United States, Ben Carson, who leads the Republican presidential field in most polls, is coming under close scrutiny for his troubled past. He has recently been revealed to have lied about his receiving full scholarships to West Point, even though attendance in West Point is free of charge, and claims that he had a supposedly extremely violent youth where he had tried to stab a friend as if that was a justification for his character. Meanwhile, the three Democratic candidates met in a forum at Winthrop University in South Carolina. There, we were able to get a better glimpse in the Democratic field, mixing up those L's and R's now, which has been sorely lacking spotlight compared to the Republicans. The candidates expressed strong beliefs in the Keystone XL pipeline and gun violence, two topics that had its own share of spotlight this past week, as we will go over. Now, on Friday, President Obama struck down the Keystone XL project, which had been on hold for years now. The pipeline would have stretched from Alberta in Canada to the Texan Gulf Coast, relieving foreign oil dependence and creating new jobs while increasing America's addiction with fossil fuels and laying environmental destruction in the process. The Republicans and Democrats were so divided over the subject that the project became something of a symbol for gridlock in Congress. As Obama said himself, the pipeline was too often used as a campaign cudgel. The president did have some authority in the decision, as the pipeline crosses international lines, and thus the State Department must approve the project. TransCanada, the company in charge of Keystone XL, has announced that it will review its options to have the pipeline built. New Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also had something to say in the matter. He expressed disappointment in the American rejection of the program, but in his words, the Canada-US relationship is much bigger than any one project, and he looks forward to a fresh start with Obama to strengthen their ties in a spirit of friendship and cooperation. Well said, Mr. Trudeau. In Chicago, the execution of a 9-year-old boy for gang-related issues renewed outcry over gun violence in the United States. Tyshawn Lee, whose father is affiliated with gangs, was found in an alleyway with multiple gunshot wounds. Gang violence and illegal firearms have been a staple of crime in Chicago, despite numerous drives to increase police presence and take off illegal guns from the streets. Crimes like these still manage to come back to haunt the city. When Lieutenant Charles Joseph Gliniewicz, affectionately known as G.I. Joe or Just Joe, passed away in September, apparently at the line of duty, the entire community mourned the Chicago cop's loss. But it has now been revealed that Gliniewicz's death was a staged suicide after he feared a village administrator might reveal his laundering money from a youth program that he had been overseeing for 7 years. In fact, he had even sought out a hitman to assassinate the administrator and, according to a CBS report, is also purported to have planned to plant cocaine on the administrator to allegedly bust her for her faked crimes. Gliniewicz also had numerous sexual harassment allegations, complaints for using his gun to intimidate a dispatcher, and an instance of reporting his truck stolen after he had been found passed out by a sheriff's deputy, extracted from the truck and taken home. The community's initial shock and grief at the moment of Gliniewicz's death has now been turned to anger and tarnished the reputation of thousands of cops around the nation. Remember when the American East Coast took a small earthquake and went ballistic over it? Well, to be fair, the West Coast goes looking for an arc every time when there's a bit of water coming down from the skies. But I digress. In contrast, Chile regularly takes extremely powerful earthquakes. Coquimbo took 2 earthquakes in the jaw when a magnitude 6.8 earthquake hit the area just 2 months after a deadly 8.3 earthquake back in September, which killed 11 people. The more recent quake has no immediate news of damage to property or human life, and unlike the last quake, no tsunami warnings were issued, fortunately. Hopefully the community will be able to recover swimmingly without more earthquakes in the way. For some good news, the World Health Organization has announced on Friday that Sierra Leone is free of Ebola. It has been almost 2 years since the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, and Sierra Leone suffered over 14,000 cases and nearly 4,000 deaths. Although free from the fatal disease, the recovering victims are still experiencing some health problems left over from the disease. There is also a possibility of a disease striking back, like in Liberia, which was announced Ebola-free until it resurfaced and was re-announced free of Ebola back in September. However, many organizations and the country are working hard to help the citizens recover and prevent the disease from coming back. Meanwhile, neighboring Guinea still sees new cases of Ebola surfacing now and then, but many are hoping the country to recover and see the end of the outbreak once and for all. But don't think I'm not angry at you anymore for this World Health Organization. Bacon was, is, and no matter what you say, always will be life. Finally, for this week's science news, in Brazil, reptile and amphibian fossils dating back 278 million years ago have been excavated, revealing 2 new species of divinosaurs. These divinosaurs, not dinosaurs, extinct cousins of modern salamanders, were about 40 centimeters long, and one of them had well-developed fangs and gills. Within the unearthed fossils contained South Africa's oldest terrestrial reptile skeleton. These animals were only found in North America before, and this discovery now gives us great new insight to the animals' habitats. The researchers also have more precedents to explore more in depth the southern tropics during the Permian era. But seriously, 40 centimeters, that's around yay big. Imagine a Jurassic Park movie where the characters are chased by something shorter than your iPhone. Wait, 40 centimeters. That's 4. No, that would be shorter than... It's around as tall as this mic, isn't it? But anyways, still makes more sense than running from a T-Rex while running in high heels. Oof. And that'll be the 1010 news of the week. I'm Andy Hong. Next week is Veterans Day. Make sure you honor our servicemen and women. And remember, it is Veterans Day, not just National Barbecue Day. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week with more of your top 10 news in 10 minutes. Stay educated.